Hi, this is Sweet June. How's everybody doing today? Coming back at you with another video. I see this term has been getting thrown around a lot on YouTube. A lot of people, a lot of particularly black YouTubers have been talking about this word. Um, it's interesting. YouTuber on here by the name of Chloe. I don't know if you guys watch her videos, but her videos are very, very, very interesting. Um, she talks a lot about hypergamy, this word hypergamy, um, and she does a lot of videos educating Black women on um, being feminine and educating Black women on how men think. And her check her out. Her name is Chloe. Her videos are very, very, very enlightening and very interesting. I sometimes find myself binge watching her stuff. Anyway, it's interesting because when I first started watching her videos, to be perfectly honest, I didn't know what this word meant when I first started watching her videos. But as I'm seeing more and more this word being thrown around a lot on YouTube. And when I first started watching her videos, she was the first person that I heard this word from being this word term being used. And to be perfectly honest, I'm like, what's hypergamy? And so I Googled it, and I didn't know what it meant. Then I thought about it and I said, wow, I thought that was kind of deep that I didn't know what hypergamy was. All the years of college and all this, I'm call me an idiot, but I didn't know what hypergamy was. But then, I had to Google it. And then I thought about it, I marinated on that, and I was like, I kind of couldn't believe that I didn't know what that meant. And I think, and I really marinated, meditated on why I didn't know what it meant. What this term and as it relates to black women. But this is the definition. Googled it and looked it up on Wikipedia here, and it means hypergamy means marrying up, occasionally referred to as higher hypergamy, is a term used in social science for the act or practice of a person marrying a spouse of higher caste or social status than themselves. So that's what hypergamy means. It means marrying up. Um, and that's interesting because um, black women only having a 30. I wanted to talk about and really examine that term as it relates to black women. And when I look at the marital rates of black women only have a 30% marital rate. And then I thought, out of those black women that are married, how many of them are in a hypergamous marriage. And I started really, really thinking about marinating. You know, you guys all talk a lot on my channel about single motherhood and advising black women to avoid single motherhood as all at if all possible. If you can avoid it, sometimes you can't avoid it because of circumstances, but if you have the opportunity to avoid single motherhood as a black woman, go ahead and avoid it. Because check out my video where I'm talking about um, um, single motherhood and the issues that are unique to black women as relating to single motherhood. And I'm gonna be talking more about how children raised in single black homes, as opposed to as it related to black males and females, um, how it affects young black males and females being raised in single parent black homes. But stay tuned, I'm gonna be talking about that. So I really thought about this term um, as it refers to. I know Chloe talks a lot about this term referring to black women, but I thought I would give my little take on um, this term as it relates to black women. You know, I really, really got to thinking about it, and she actually she encourages black women to get into it is very, very important that a black woman marries someone that, or any woman in general, marries a man that has more, that makes more money than she makes, because the male ego being the way it is, most men have a problem with a woman making more money. Now, in our mind, in a woman's mind, because men's thinking is not the same as our thinking. They don't think the way we do. A lot of times, us women think, that, we think one way, men think another. The way women think and the way men think is two different. Women and men don't think alike. Now, in our mind, we think, okay, what difference does it make? How much money, because what's his is mine and what's mine is his. We get married, it don't make no difference. But to men, it does make a difference because God put in them, like as I stated in many videos, the male is the head. God put in them, you know, He put into men and her husband was her manager. And then when the marriage didn't work out, he starts having these affairs on her and stuff. And the marriage doesn't work out. They get the divorce. Now he's suing her for large amounts of alimony. And then he keeps coming back for more. Read a lot of blogs about that's been an ongoing debate between men and women. The men saying, yeah, he should get what, because women do it all the time, and this and that and forth and other. What my thought is on that, a man ain't supposed to ask no woman for no money. Um, Now it would have been okay for her to give him an initial settlement, for him to go ahead and just take, the court, they agree in court with initial settlement, and then he go on and take it and go on about his business. But for him to ask for $30,000 a month is just ridiculous. And then, but anyway, I don't believe a man should be asking for no woman a woman for no money like that. I think a man need to be a man and get out there and earn his own money. Now that's just the way I think. It's a little different. What men say, what men's argument was okay. Well, women do it all the time. Well, the man is supposed to be the head, and the man is supposed to be the provider. He is supposed to be the head, and he's supposed to take care of the woman. Now he want to go out there and clown and go have an affair, and then the woman don't have no choice but to divorce him. Then it's still his responsibility to provide for that woman, because that's just what a man's role is. A man's role is to provide and protect. It don't say that's the woman's role. It didn't say nothing about the woman's role being to provide and protect. It says that is a man's role to provide and protect. So that's a little bit different. So to me, that argument is weak. When women do it all the time. Well, a woman's place and a man's place is two different places. The man is supposed to be the head and he's supposed to be the provider. So even though that marriage don't work, he's still supposed to be providing for that woman, because he was supposed to stay married to her in the first place and wasn't supposed to be getting a divorce in the first place. So he's still supposed to be provided. Now, I'm not saying it was nothing wrong with her giving him an initial settlement. You know, I'm not saying he shouldn't have got anything. He should have got a little something. Yeah, give him initial settlement, and then he should have went on about his business instead of keep asking for coming back asking for $30,000 a month and then keep increasing it and all this kind of stuff. Yourself, your own job and your own career, and quit begging your ex-wife for money. Plain and simple. Just be a man, man up. Anyway, that's my opinion. That's the way it is. But that is the problem with a lot of celebrity um, black women. They have a tendency to marry the help. They don't put themselves in a hypergamous situation to where they have a man marry a man that is on their level financially or higher or is making more money. Now, case in point, Janet Jackson. Now, Janet, my girl Janet, is smart. She played smart. She married someone that had um, more money than what she had. They wasn't spiritually yoked, so because they wasn't spiritually yoked, they wound up getting a divorce, and she had a baby by this man. I think he was a Muslim or something like that, and she winds up having a baby by this guy. But uh, Janet had her own quite a bit of her own money getting into the marriage, um, but he had more, and so when she walked away from the marriage, she walked away with a nice piece of change. So she didn't walk away having to drop him nothing, and she walked away with a nice amount of money. So Janet played it smart. A lot of black women need to take notes from Janet Jackson because she married somebody that was higher status, was making more money. And it's not about being a gold digger. Men say, well, that's just being a gold digger. No, because I know many cases of where women married men that, you know, wasn't on their level financially or career wise. And there was a lot of problems. There was a lot of problems in the marriage. The man winds up cheating, because his male ego is just damaged because they just can't mentally handle their wife being more successful or making more money than them. They just mentally can't handle it. So they wind up cheating on the woman and everything, and giving the woman a hard time. And then marriage turns sour. They get a divorce, and then he winds up asking the woman, the wife, for a whole lot of money. So we see many cases of that where how that turns out and how that doesn't work. So um, encouraging women to get into a hypergamous situation is is because that's the way the men are providers and protectors. They're supposed to provide and protect. And that's what Jehovah God put in them. So when it's anything other than that, it's going to be problems. It's not about being a gold digger. It's about the having being in the right order, having things being in the right order. If things are not, it's just like when women have kids outside of marriage, and she's put in a position where she's the head of the household, and she has no male head. Well, as I always stated in many videos, a lot of things is going to be lacking with the children, no matter how good of a mother she is, because that's just not the way of God's order. God's order is husband, wife, and children, and that is the order of things. Now, if you get anything else outside of that, a lot of things are going to be lacking. And so that's the same goes with hypergamy. If a woman marries a man that's below her social class and status, then there's going to be problems. There's going to be problems because that's just not the order. It's just not the order of things. Marriages have a tendency to run a lot smoother when the man has more money financially and he's in a better position to provide for his wife. And marriages had the tendency to run smoother that way. In most cases, not saying in a lot of cases, not um, all cases. Now, unless you're dealing with an athlete, now we all know that athletes have a high. Women marry athletes, it's a high divorce rate because We know how athletes are. They have the tendency to get sexually involved with a lot of women, but that's a different situation there. Now, the problem with black women getting into hypergamous type situations, um, there was somebody in my family that was in a hypergamous situation, and that was my uncle. I had an uncle in Chicago, and my uncle was married, and his wife was pretty much, my aunt was pretty much, well, she did have her job. She did have a job, but my uncle was making more money than my aunt was, and she was, as a result, um, she was in a position to where she could travel and she could go to different places and do different things, and have a certain. I always thought, when they would come up to visit, because that was the only time I was ever exposed to married couples. Both of my uncles were married, and when they would come up from Chicago, that was the only time I was ever exposed to, or even got a glimpse of what it was like to see an actual black married couples. And so I used to think that she was so classy. I used to think that aunt was so classy. She always had cute clothes, and I always had her makeup on and everything. And I just even I thought her mannerisms and everything was so classy and everything. But that's because she was literally in a hypergamous type situation. My uncle made a decent amount of money. She was in a position. I think she was a crossing guard, I believe it was. And my aunt was in a position to, she traveled because my uncle gave her money to go traveling and do different things. She was able to go shopping, and so he basically spoiled her, And so that's an example of someone in my family that was in a hypergamous type situation. Because, as I stated before, I grew up around. My mother was a single mother. My aunt was a single mother. Their friends were single mothers. Women in the neighborhood were single mothers. So I was surrounded by single mothers growing up, and that was the only time that I was ever exposed to, or even got the glimpse of what it was like to see actual black married couples. Was my two uncles. They both were married, and my other uncle, he, um, my aunt, the woman that he married, my aunt. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she basically stayed home with the children while he went out. And that uncle always worked two jobs. I mean, he worked two jobs throughout his whole working career. He worked two jobs. He's a very, very hard working, meek, humble man. And so my aunt was in a position to be a stay-at-home mom. So she was in a hypergamous. That was a hypergamous type situation as well. So I see both of those marriages. Um, my Both of them lasted until my uncles died. You know, there was no divorce. Both of those marriages lasted until my uncles died. Till they both died. So that was two examples in my family that I've seen of hypergamous type situations, with black women being in hypergamous type situations. And I noticed that, um, and even my mother, when my mother was married to my dad, my sister, my older sister, like I said, my dad left when I was 5 years old, so I don't remember anything before then. I have to talk to my older sister, and she gives me the full scoop on, because my older sister was 7 when I was born. Yeah, she was 7. So she remembers everything about my father being when he was in the home, because him and my mom was married for 10 years. And my mother was in a hypergamous type situation. My mother was a housewife. I mean, I remember my mother going to work. That's what I remember. Because my father left when I was 5. So after my father left, my mother became the head of household, became a single mother. So she had to go out and go to work and provide for the family. And that's the mother that remember. The mother that went out to work and provided for the family, and grinded and handled business. But my sister remembers my mother in both aspects. My sister remembers my mother being a housewife. And so when she tells me this stuff, I kind of like, wow, really? And my mother was a housewife, and my father went out and worked and brought home the money and paid for the house and paid the bills and all that, while my mother stayed home and took care of the kids and the house and all that. So my mother was in a hypergamous type situation until my father left, and then she that put her in a position to where she had to become the head of the household and provide for the family. So when my mother was in that hypergamous situation, things did run a lot smoothly in the home. Um, but when my father left, it put my mother in a position to where she had to be the head, and she became a full fledged single mother. You know, because my father, when he divorced my mother, he divorced us kids too. So, and my mother had to go out and get a job, and she had to provide for the family, and that's the mother I remember. But my sister remembers her both being a stay-at-home mom, a housewife, and a single mother. So she got the chance to see my mother in both aspects, but I didn't get the opportunity to see my mother in that aspect because I vaguely remember anything. I don't remember nothing before the age of 5, and I vaguely remember. I remember a few little things when I was 5. I remember, well, my kindergarten teacher was mean. I remember that. She was mean. Oh, she was mean as a snake. I do remember that, and and I remember um, this guy used to chase me home from school in kindergarten, and I used to get chased by this dog, and I remember being terrified. So I remember my mother taking me to school a couple times, my father walking out. So that's vaguely That's the few things I remember at the age of 5, but I don't remember anything before that. I'm drawing a blank of anything before that. I wish I could remember my father being there, but I can't. Remember anything before the age of 5. So my older sister, was 7 when I was born, so she remembers all that. So my mother was in a hypergamous type situation. So when black women are in, well, of course, the marital rates were 50%. Marital rates was 50% with black women back in the 50s and 60s. Anything for before the 19, I think 60s, I think the marital rates for black women was like 50%. So there was a lot of black women that were married, and things ran smoother. But the problem is with black women getting into hypergamous type situations, the only chance of black women are, I know that when black women marry white men, um, white billionaires or millionaires, then they're putting themselves in a hypergamous type situation. But it's hard to get into for a black woman to get into a hypergamous type situation with a black man because statistically more black women have degrees. Statistically, more black women have careers, and statistically the entrepreneur rate is going up with black women as well. So, and then when black women, oh, that was another point I was gonna make. Another point I was gonna make is the reason why it's so difficult for a black woman to get into a hypergamous type situation is when black men, I noticed that, and a lot of people notice, when black men do get to a certain social class and status, they have the tendency to marry outside the race. They have the tendency, once they get into that social class or status, they have the tendency to marry someone, a white woman or somebody other than a black woman. And so when they, I don't know, and that's happening in alarming numbers actually. When a black man get up to a certain social class or status, he winds up marrying a woman of another race. He don't marry a black woman. He marries a woman of another race, and that happens a lot, particularly in the entertainment industry, and in the athletics. Athletes, with entertainers. You notice that most majority of the men are married to women other than black women. You know, so when a black man does get up to a certain social class or status, in a lot of cases, he winds up marrying a woman outside the race. he don't get with no black woman. So that makes it very difficult for black women to get into a hypergamous type situation. So um, that's what works better for black women. For black women, if a black woman can get into that type of situation, but it's very difficult. Particularly the more money she makes, the higher she goes in her career, the more money she makes, it becomes increasingly more difficult for her to find a black man on her level financially and career. And then she does in a lot of cases with a lot of celebrity black women. They marry the help, they marry their managers or somebody that works for them, don't make as much money. He's on their payroll and he doesn't have his own career or have his own money coming in, and then he makes less money. There's a major issue. There's a major issue. They have a serious problem with it, and then they wind up cheating with a woman uh, that makes less money than they make. So that way they feel more like a man. That makes them feel more like a man. And they wind up taking that woman's money and giving it to the other woman, you know, so they can stick their chest out and feel proud and be a man. That's just the way it goes. And then they wind up getting a divorce, and then he winds up beating the celebrity. Now Jill Scott, um, her husband tried to get a whole lot of money out of her, but she played it smart. I think she had a prenup. She had to pay him nothing. So Jill Scott played it kind of smart. I mean, she when she married somebody, same situation was, I don't know, I don't know if he was her manager or whatever, but they wasn't married for long. And then when they did get a divorce, he tried to beat her out of her money. But she said, I think she had a pretty good, I think she had a prenup, and he didn't hardly get nothing out of her. So she played it smart. So yeah, so that's unless a woman has an ironclad prenuptial agreement, then the man is not going to get hardly anything, coming out of the marriage. And so, yeah, is it best for a black woman to get into a hypergamous situation? Yes, is the best thing. And it's not being a gold digger. It's not about being a gold digger. It's about the natural order of things, because in most cases, a man got a problem with a woman that makes more money and has more career success than he does. It they just have problems. So it's not about being a gold digger. It's about just you know things seems to run more smoothly, and marriages tend to last longer when black women or even white women too are in a hypergamous type situation, to where the man they're marrying up. They're marrying someone that has more social class and status. The marriages tend to run a little bit more smoothly, because a man is in a position to where he's the provider and he's the protector, and that's the natural order. The problem is that it's very, very difficult for a black woman to get into that situation unless she marries a white man that has, and white man is a lot of more financially stable white man than it is black man. So unless she marries a white man that's a millionaire, or even if he's a thousandaire, then she's putting herself in a position to where she's in a hypergamous type situation. But in most cases, a lot of times black women want to marry black men, in a lot of cases. But I have seen some like Rihanna. Is Rihanna married? But she's with a man. I don't know if she's married him yet, but she's with a man. He got a whole lot of money. And then it's another black woman, famous black woman that's with a white a millionaire, and or a millionaire of another race, and he got a whole lot of money too. And so that's the best thing for black women to do. Um, so that's my opinion, but it's more difficult for a black woman to get into that, because statistically, our graduation rates are higher. Statistically, black women make well, black men make more money than black women, but there's a lot of black women that, because our graduation rates are higher, black women had a tendency to get into careers and jobs and that's making six figures or whatever. And so there's not as many black men that's in that position. So the chances of her marrying a black man that's below her class is a lot more greater. And we think in our mind it don't matter. Love is the most important thing, but ultimately in the long run it does matter. You know, it matters to that man, and then it matters to the relationship. And so that's my little take on it. I had to I just really shocked that initially I didn't know what that meant. But I had to look it up. I had to look it up, and I had to really, after I read and understood the term, I had to really, I had to really marinate on that um, hypergamy as it relates to black women and the difficulties of a black woman getting into a hypergamous type situation. I know when I get married, I love to be in a hypergamous type situation. I definitely don't want to make more money than my husband, because I'm seeing in a lot of these relationships where it causes too many problems when the woman makes more. So let me know what you think. I just had to give my little take on it. I've seen this term being thrown around on YouTube a lot. I just kind of had to give my little take on it. Let me know in the comment section of what you think. Do you think it's best for a black woman to be in a hypergamous type situation, or you think it doesn't matter? Um, Let me know. Hit me up in the comment section what you think. Stay tuned. I got some more interesting video topics coming up. Um, be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification bell so every time I do a video, you will be notified. I need you guys to help me get up to that 1,000 subscribe mark so I can start monetizing my videos again. I got some interesting things, coming up on my channel. So I need you guys to hang with me and hang in there with me. Um, Make sure you just share my videos, because that's going to get my videos more out there. And make sure you hit that like button, and make sure you share my videos. Okay, I just need you guys to help me out. So hit me up in the comment section. Let me know what you think about hypergamy as it relates to black women. Um, Stay tuned. Got some more interesting video types coming up. Peace and love. This is Sweet June.